Presented by the Making Star Wars Podcasting Network. This is the Cantina Cast, your watering hole for thought-provoking Star Wars discussion, character dissections, quote and scene analysis, honest opinions on the Star Wars news that interests you, and whatever else these guys come up with. Here are your hosts, Mike and Joa.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 218, the Last Jedi's Rey random episode dissection thing. I don't know what we're really going to call it, but I'm your host, Mike, and I am joined by Albert. Albert, say hello to the fine folks.
Hello, fine folks. Hello, Mike. How are you doing?
Not too bad. Last night we had to delay the recording of this episode because I had a bout of, I don't know. I was a little tired and I thought I was getting the flu because the wife was up the night before puking all over the place. It was a lovely time in the Rondo household as it was. But yeah, we're here tonight. We're here to talk about Rey and a few other things. We got, first off, I actually thought we were going to get a trailer this week, Albert, because, we had the synopsis, which came out of nowhere. They haven't done this for any other film, I don't recall, or in a press release or anything like that. Maybe Rogue One. Do you recall that at all?
I don't remember one for Rogue One, no.
No, see, I could
be
think
wrong,
of Rogue
but I don't
One.
Remember one. Yeah,
yeah, but not the Last Jedi, or certainly not the Force Awakens, because they were keeping everything tight-lipped at that point. But we get this little synopsis thing. And maybe I'll try to read this with we just brush over it, because all I'm going to say is this is kind of what I expected. It seems kind of safe. I don't know if I like the whole, Han Solo meets his mighty future co-pilot Chewbacca. Sorry, I was putting an extra R under that, I guess.
That's what you do.
Yeah, from Rhode Island, that's what happens. So I don't know if I like that. I always like the whole, they've been around for like a while. I guess by the time we get to A New Hope, it's been a while anyway. I don't know. I mean, I guess this is not shocking at all, but what are your thoughts on the synopsis? The notorious gambler, though, that seems a little maybe embellished, because I don't get the sense he really was notorious, but I could be wrong. But
maybe they play that up a little bit more than we have known in the past. This is pretty safe. Like, there was nothing in here that really kind of was shocking, surprising. I think the one piece that stood out for that little synopsis, where is it at? Where it talks about we get into the underground.
Yeah, the dark and dangerous criminal underworld.
Yeah, that's kind of. I mean, again, nothing new. I think we'd speculated that, and I know we've talked about it on a couple shows, but that one seems interesting just because now it's official confirmation. So I think what I'd really like to know more about now is, okay, so what criminal organization are we going to see in this movie? Are we going to get,
I said that guy. Yeah, I said that guy
Pike.
in the Pike, right? Yeah, which would be cool if they did that. That would definitely be a throw to the Clone Wars and everything. But I don't know, what else you got for that?
Yeah, well, they were tied up in spice and all of that. So I think, to me, that probably makes the most logical sense. I would like to maybe see Black Sun again, only because we got some of them in, I think, the Clone Wars.
Yes, we did.
And they were in SWTOR also. But anyways,
we don't talk about SWTOR. But okay, go ahead.
Yep. And then we had there's maybe the Hutt cartel. And maybe they set some precedents there for Jabba, or some little access lane or entry path for Jabba to come in. But that would mean we get Zero, which we don't want Zero. Nobody wants Zero.
You sure about that?
I
don't know. That might be pretty cool. No, I'm only kidding.
Or
I think we will get Jabba at some point. I don't know. What else?
Some Jabba presence, right? But I thought it'd be, what if they went with like Kanji Club or the Guavian Death Gang, and that would give that little kind of connected tissue back to The Force Awakens. And, maybe they've been chasing them this long, or they've been dealing, because you get the sense that they've had it, they're at their limit. I mean, those two gangs they're supposed to be at odds with one another, but yet they've got this common enemy in Han Solo. So maybe we get to see some of those seeds in this movie sprouting, and it culminates into The Force Awakens, where we see them, be eradicated by the Rathgars and all that. So I don't know, it'll be interesting.
I could go with the Conja Club, because it's such a, it just makes me think of like a Boy George song or something like that. I don't know why it just makes me think of that, but But, I can't see the gang, the Guavian Death Gang, because I feel like they're a newer type of game, gang. I could see the Conja Club because it seems like it'd be one around for eons or something like that. I don't know, but nothing else really jumped out at me other than that and the notorious gambler, Lando Calrissian, which I thought was kind of laughable. It almost makes me think like, Han thinks he's this great pilot and all, which he is, and this great smuggler, which he probably maybe is, but he over embellishes it. And I get the feeling that's the same way with the gambling thing. So I'm interested in the dynamic. All right, we know that obviously he's going to be in the Kessel, the spice mines and all that stuff. So obviously, I think he frees Chewbacca, maybe, which goes back to the old EU stuff, and I wouldn't mind that. That's fine, but like, how he wins the ship and all this, how they're going to mesh it all into one thing. Are we going to jump here? Are we going to jump there? I mean, how are we going to do it? Is it going to be like Rogue One? We start off where he's a boy, then we go to a teenager, and then maybe, I don't know, 5 minutes before. You know what I mean? That's the interesting thing. Yeah.
I think they would. I think they will. And only because there's one line in that says through a series of daring escapades. So it kind of leads you to think that he's going to have multiple adventures or mini adventures that kind of all culminate in this one larger, storytelling adventure. So maybe we do see, him as a young boy, and maybe we get to see the academy and him dropping out or getting out of that, and then being picked up by whatever his mentor is now. I forget the name.
I forget his name.
Yeah,
Garrus? Is it Garrus or something like that?
No, Tobias, or whatever it is. Either way, it would be interesting to see that kind of progression, kind of like they did with Rogue One. Rogue One was really, they really spent just a very small amount of time, and I get why they did that with Jinn at her young age, because really the book kind of fills in all that gap. But maybe this makes sense for Han Solo, that we get to see a little bit more of that progression and that growth into the character that he is. I think one thing that I have heard, this is not really spoiler, but I have heard that, with the Han Solo movie, we're going to see, we won't see him as the person we see him in episode 4. We may see him a little bit more jovial, a little bit more kinder, that kind of thing. And really the events that transpire in this movie
make him the way he is.
Make him the way he is in 4, which I think is a really cool dynamic for the movie.
Well, almost a return to what he once was, which is why, it goes to that line with Snoke, you have your heart of your father, know. So, I mean, it would be cool if we see him. I imagine it's going to be starting off as like an 8-year-old or 9-year-old boy, and something happens, and then he goes and whatever happens after that, and that kind of gets him to be that way, so to speak. And then, as they progress with Chewie, he takes Chewie on because he still has that heart. And then, once he plays Lando and all that stuff, that'll be interesting. I wonder if they'll finish with Lando, him winning the Falcon off of Lando at the end.
Yeah, maybe that's why they're playing up this notorious gambler piece, just to say, look, he's that good that he's going to be able to take the Falcon away from him.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out. I mean, we're going to know more soon because Ron Howard said we'll get a trailer soon. I'm just surprised it isn't by the time we're recording it. Of course, watch tomorrow. It'll happen and we'll have to record something or whatever. We'll make do somehow. But anyway, we got a little bit of Qui-Gon news, which is pretty interesting, but not surprising. I'm just surprised we don't get this more often because it seems like everyone asks, Ewan McGregor, Natalie Portman, or, Hayden Christensen. Everybody gets asked this question who's ever been in Star Wars, Of course, we have Samuel L. Jackson. Very much, yes, bring me back at any time. Since since Disney bought Lucasfilm and everything. But apparently, Liam Nielsen, he was asked if he wanted to be in Star Wars again. So what do you got? What do you make of this?
Yeah, and so just to read the quote, he says, "This is the first time I'm hearing of this." The Irish actor explained, "No one's been in touch with me. I know that in Star Wars world, anything is possible. In the first one, The Phantom Menace, I died, but we know, Jedi come back and stuff, but no one's been in touch. We'll see." So there's really probably not a whole lot here. I mean, it was, I forget what movie he was doing the interview for. I think Yahoo UK broke this, but I mean, he kind of came out publicly and said he was done with action movies. That wouldn't rule him out, in my opinion, from a Star Wars movie, because if you think about it, if he is coming back, right, you're going to be walking around, buddy, and you're going to have this blue tint on you the entire time. So
you're going
to
point to the sky and force lightning will come out. You might even just be now. See, this is the thing, and this is a good time to bring this up with that book, A Certain Point of View, where he finally learns to become a Force ghost, where before he was the disembodied voice and the lights that guided Yoda. Well, I guess
But see, that was retcon because there was an episode of the Clone Wars in like season 2 or 3 where he actually came back as a physical manifestation.
Oh, that was the Mortisar.
Yeah,
but there's a special reason for that.
Yeah, that's true. Right.
Because it's amplified in the Force. And I was fine with that. Actually, I thought it wasn't him, actually. The first time around, I thought it was the father manifesting. But the time where Anakin runs off to face the son, I thought that was him actually in the Force there. And that's only because it was, with Mortis being Mortis, it's almost like, all right, if he went to, say, on the island with Luke there, Osh too, he would manifest that way because it's powerful in the Force and that could happen. But like if you're on Tatooine, no, that's not happening because it's just Tatooine.
You're a voice.
Exactly. That's more of how I would see it in my eyes because I like the fact that the progression with learning the Force in that sense. I'm not as uncomfortable with him being a Force ghost now in that book. Not that it's exactly canon. It's kind of like, all right, maybe, possibly, maybe this is what happened. It's from my point of view, your point of view, that type of stuff. I'm okay with it to a degree. I'm still uncomfortable with it. I mean, I don't know. I prefer him being the voice and kind of guiding like Yoda and maybe saying, you got Obi-Wan going forward and stuff like that. But it would be cool. I mean, this kind of ramps up the whole Obi-Wan stuff because we've always wanted the Force ghost, Qui-Gon talking to Yoda or the voice or whatever it may be. We've always wanted that. We didn't get that with, we could have got that in Return of the Jedi, but it didn't happen. And we thought we were going to get that with the Blu-ray. We thought Lucas was going to throw that in, and that would have been great because in the book, he's actually talking to Yoda before Bail shows up. That would have been interesting. I want Qui-Gon to come back. Don't get me wrong. I want to see it. But, you'd almost want to see Qui-Gon if it's Liam Neeson doing the voice there, right? You want to see him. You don't want to just hear his voice. I mean, he did stuff with the Clone Wars, so, it's not like he wouldn't do it. So,
right.
But like you said, he's not going to be swinging a lightsaber around or jumping or anything like that. So I think he would come back and he would do it. It wouldn't be a problem. It's almost like the Obi-Wan argument I made last week. Like, why is he training? Obi-Wan didn't train. He was getting old and gray and, beaten down at that point. He's not working out, doing, all these things and stuff like that. But
Jawa cakes is what we said.
Yes, exactly, which is canon now, thanks to you. Yep. Well, what else do you get to say about Qui-Gon coming back real quick?
Well, I guess there's one aspect of it all that's always been intriguing to me, and the fact that Qui-Gon, when he died, he kind of transcended to the master role, right? He was the one that ended up teaching Yoda, taught Obi-Wan. So I really hope that we get to see that if he does come in to the Kenobi movie. I think either way, though, I don't know that, depending on how that story plays out, if it falls where we're thinking it's going to fall in terms of the timeline, I mean, he'll probably have a very minor cameo role. I can't see him, being, throughout the movie. He may just kind of come and go as Kenobi needs counsel and that kind of thing. But I don't see him being the kind of a central character. But, all that said, it'd be really cool to see Qui-Gon Jinn again one more time.
Exactly. All right. Well, let's get into a little bit of Rian Johnson, who's speaking about and defending The Last Jedi, as many other people are. I guess there was two things that happened here. There was the Empire magazine. You found this article, which is kind of what we're going to talk about here. Mm-hmm. But he was also on their podcast, I believe, right? And
yeah, he was. And I haven't had a chance to listen to the podcast, so I'm not sure how that went. I've heard a lot of good things. We've had some good dialogue and discussion in our Discord channels about the podcast, but we won't talk about that. But it really was this was kind of 10 revelations, I think is how it was labeled, that he provided to Empire magazine. And there's some stuff on here that we kind of already knew, really wasn't eye-opening in any way. There was some questions in there about Broom Boy in that last scene. But I think for me, the ones that stood out, there's one in here that said Luke and Kylo's views are built to mirror each other. In other words, they both learn lessons that they can't just bury the past. They both tried to in their own different ways.
Well, they want to get rid of it too.
Yeah. And they couldn't. The only one that really understood, or I guess if you read the article, he goes on to explain that Rey had the right idea, was rather than trying to bury your past, just build upon it, which is what these guys probably should have done. Maybe even Rian Johnson, but whatever. It's another discussion for another day.
Kind of ironic, isn't it? Yeah, but anyway.
Kind of ironic. But that one stood out to me because it's a neat little parallel there that they were both kind of trying to bury their head in the sand and hope things just went away and came back to bite them both. The Holdo's hyperspace attack. I
was going to ask you, what was the one that reaches back to a line from the past? I can't, other than what happened in Rogue One and the Clone Wars with the sacrifice. I can't think of.
It goes back to the line in episode 4 where he says traveling through hyperspace ain't like Dustin Crop's boy without precise calculations, whatever. That whole thing. That was a part. He focused in on that as a child, as a kid, and really thought, what would that look like? And that was the inspiration for that scene. So
see, I just went to Rogue One. I didn't even think of that line. Actually, I just went to Rogue One because we saw it. What happened when Vader's ship comes out and then he's slamming into things and all that other stuff. But that's how I took it. And then them sacrificing and all that stuff. But what else you got for me here?
That's really it. I mean, the other stuff was, Kylo and Rey's connection. I think we've kind of beat that horse to death. We're going to talk about parentage here, Rey's parentage a little bit later. Mm-hmm. All kidding aside, it's interesting because that Stable Boy ending was on the cutting room floor for a number of, I guess he was kind of going back and forth in the editing room about whether to include it and whether or not. The one thing that stood out was he was talking about how in that final scene where they're all on the Falcon and she just tells him we have everything, Leia tells Rey we have everything we need here or whatever. That was supposed to be the final scene. He even put in there that this seems like the perfect image to end on.
Well, it's framed that way when you
exactly. Yeah. I mean, the way it's framed, the way the camera's kind of backing out, you're expecting that wipe to come up.
Correct, because it's Star Wars, and then we go to the Marvel Universe shot where we got Broom Boy and all that other stuff. I get what he was trying to get at there. That Luke inspired these young kids. The story keeps going, and his legend grows, and he's inspiring kids. I get that, which
I didn't really need that there though.
I didn't either. I thought it was just an odd thing to do with that, but I don't want to go into a whole thing about it.
No,
but I just thought it was. I didn't think it was needed. It felt like after post-credit stuff, it was like before credit stuff, like just before. But I don't know. But anyway, anything else?
He was trying to hit it. He was trying to hit that home, and I get what he was trying to do, but he could have easily just let it go there, end on the Falcon, and then somewhere at the very beginning, or even just early on in the first act, maybe just pick up a line that says, or show that in other ways without kind of breaking the mold that was set. But apart from that, again, maybe we'll put the link in the show notes. But it's interesting to read. Again, there's nothing really no huge revelations in my opinion. At least if you listen to the show, I think we've kind of dissected and spoke about many of these things already. Well, it's funny because
just real quick, he mentioned Snoke unceremonious death here for the new paradigm. And I don't have a problem with Snoke dying. I just wish we had more development in the movie when he was we got some pretty good stuff in the throne room when he's talking to Rey and Kylo and everything. I thought that was great. I just wanted a little bit more of that maybe. I'm not too sure. I really don't have a problem with Snoke dying. I figured he was going to die anyway. I just didn't know how. I thought it was going to be at Luke's hands, but that didn't happen. But I didn't have a big problem with him being taken out and then Kylo, because like I said before, last show, a couple of shows before, I think it's interesting that Kylo is at the helm and he's really unstable and he can't really lead. Katie and I, this is one of the few things we agreed that, he doesn't really know how to lead. He's not really a military tactician. He's just like goes in guns blazing, as we saw him on Crate there with Luke. He was just going to fire everything he had at one guy. And that's like, come on, really? But anyway.
He's unfit for the job in
every way.
In every way. And the only thing that really is going to save, that piece of his development is the fact that we're going to get some kind of time lapse. And so we won't get to see all the mistakes that he makes. Maybe he's, gotten better and he's matured in that, at least in that aspect by the time we start episode 9. But I guess we'll see.
Well, see, because I said that if we get like a 10-year jump, I think that would be the biggest and most extreme jump is the 10-year thing where the Jedi are building up again. And I think I even mentioned it on last show. And Katie from our Discord and we went back and forth and argued over it. And I'm like, well, I don't see the problem with it. I could see him, maybe this is what sways him in a sense, because the burden of leading and making all these mistakes, and he's had to mature as a better leader and everything. And maybe that's an interesting dynamic, because I could see Adam pulling that off, and I could see Kylo doing that as well, like kind of learning his lessons from whatever happened in The Last Jedi there at the end, where he realized I overdid it, this, that, and the other, and my hand was played poorly at the end and stuff like that. And then he could mature with that, and maybe he's more formidable at that point. I don't know. That's just something I was thinking. I don't know if that even made sense. But anyway, we'll move on, sir. So unless you got one more thing to say or another thing to say of anything, no?
No, I'm good.
All right. Well, let's get into Rey. Nobody, apparently. So let's get into her hero's journey. When we first met her, from the Force Awakens to where we are now in The Last Jedi and stuff. So what did you think? What same thing as I asked you with Kylo and with Luke before. What's changed since the last time we saw them, and what did you think?
Yeah. Oh boy. Okay. So yeah. I mean, so Rey's a tough character for me because, and I'm not a single voice here. I am a one voice in a very large crowd in saying that she is one of my favorite characters now, I think, and Joe would be the first to back me up on this one. But her role in The Force Awakens was just so amazing to watch, and seeing her conclude that first act of the hero's journey right at the tail end of The Force Awakens was just a joy for me. In The Last Jedi, I do have some concerns. I do take issue with some things. I don't really feel like she got to be. I didn't get to feel like she was carrying on the momentum as the protagonist. She almost got overshadowed, and part of this is really about is Adam Driver and just how deep of a character they made in Kylo Ren and what he was able to bring out in that character. But she almost kind of gets upstaged at times, for me at least in The Last Jedi. We'll probably talk about this later. And I don't want to steal your thunder, but we've talked about it on Discord and just our own personal conversations about how she does feel like she just kind of disappears in that third act, and we don't get to see her. And there's reasons why we get it. She was trying to find Chewie, and then just circumstances the way they aligned, she really wasn't there. But it almost feels like there's certain parts of the storyline, at certain parts of her character that were kind of a disservice to the character that we saw in The Force Awakens and her development. To Daisy Ridley's credit, I think she did a really outstanding job of continuing that the character along and being, headstrong and stubborn and being independent and not needing anyone really at all. Male, female, doesn't matter. She's going to do what she needs to do. She's going to fix her own issues or fix her problems, that kind of thing. All that was still continued, but it just seems like there's parts in there where she kind of just dropped off the radar, or she got upstaged or overshadowed by bigger things that were going on. And for me, if this is really her saga or her trilogy, you would expect her to kind of keep coming back to the front, right? She can fall out. I get that. She can drop out every once in a while, but really she should be our focus. She should be all eyes on her throughout the full 2.5 hours. And it just felt like that wasn't the case at all the time. So that's kind of that's my opening comments, I guess. What did you have?
Well, for me, with her, I felt like we were her at the start, like with Luke tossing the lightsaber, and she's like, "What? What? Why'd you do that?" And, going on with Luke and everything, I felt like she was we had a bit of a kinship there, her and I, and the audience, I guess you could say, because things weren't, as Luke said, aren't going to go the way you think. And all right, we got that, like, especially when Luke's, milking the space walrus there, and she's looking and all that. It's like, what is going on here? Like, we all got this whole scratching our head, and I kind of felt like that, and the whole trying to appeal to the hero that we grew up with, or she heard about and everything, and trying to snap him out of this, and then even going to like Chewie, like, all right, listen, Chewie, I can't even reach him, can you? And him going in there and stuff. I felt very connected with Rey in that aspect, where we were like what the hell's going on here? Come on, you gotta go and help and all this other stuff, and then even getting angry to a degree. I mean, I wasn't angry. I liked the fact that Luke wasn't really willing to be so nice in a sense, or just like, hey, I've been down all this stuff here. I like that dynamic. Luke wasn't boring to me. And then Rey being frustrated with it all, I like that as well. But then we go off and we get into Reylo and all that fun stuff. And, it was good to a degree. They were fighting and everything. I liked all that. And I liked their dynamic with even Snoke and everything. I thought that was all great. And then she kind of disappears. And it felt like at the end, she, saves people. Okay, that's great. She saved people. And then it felt like it was just, she was there in the end just to move the rocks, just to have that joke. Oh, it is moving rocks, And I mean, granted, it was kind of funny, but it was almost like it was set up just for that.
Yeah, that was the payoff of the joke that was set up earlier.
Correct. And it's like, all right, well, that didn't sit well. I kind of agree with you. I wish we had. My thing is, I'd rather have had more time with her and Luke going back and forth and butting heads than going off and fighting Snoke and taking Snoke out. Maybe that should have been near the end more for me. in a sense. I don't know. There was a lot going on with The Last Jedi. I know Ryan had to accomplish a lot of things, and he did, and stuff like that. So there was a lot going on, and I know this is just my perspective and what I wanted, and that's not what's going to happen, obviously, and I can live with that. That's no big deal. I just wanted more. Like, I love the dynamic of them fighting with each other.
Yeah. I mean, it was like the immovable object meets the unstoppable force.
Exactly. And I love my favorite fight scene, and I said with Joe, is when we did the Luke episode, is when they were fighting. Well, the old school, like, just with staffs and a stick and all that other stuff. And then, with the whole lightsaber. Now, the one thing I wish Ryan had done with Luke is that he grabbed the hilt, the saber, and threw it back into the hilt like the father did, which would have been the same lightsaber that Anakin had, and the same thing happened, and it would have been epic, and I would have just lost my mind, and that would have sold the movie for me, and I would have loved it forever, and it wouldn't have been a problem. I wouldn't have a problem with anything, Reylo, anything. It wouldn't have bothered me if I'd gotten that one scene. But anyway, I didn't get that, and I can live with that. But I don't know. Do you think I'm out of line with my first analogy with that? And then, as we go on, it just was like she did disappear to me, and I'm bummed out because I really, truly, Rey's character outshined everybody in that first movie, The Force Awakens, and my daughter absolutely adores Rey, and I love that about her adoring Rey. And by the way, my daughter is really into the whole Star Wars thing now, and it's driving my mother-in-law and my wife crazy now because now she's watching the Clone Wars and all that. It's getting crazy now, so this is good for me. So I'm excited. So I'm very happy about that. But for me, it just seemed like you said, if she's the protagonist, it should kind of be that thread. I know you got to deviate a little bit, and they did that with the prequels with Obi-Wan doing his single mission and stuff like that, but I don't know, it just felt like very disjointed. Maybe it's because we had such an action-packed thing with Kylo, Snoke, and the Praetorian Guards, and then it was like that was over, and then it was like, okay, my mission's done, now I just got to go save a bunch of people. I kind of get that. I mean, I you have to push the overall story as well, so like I said, there was a lot going on there. But anyway, what else you got, sir?
Yeah, I would. So going back to what you'd said earlier about really wanting more of that relationship between Luke and Rey playing out in whatever way it plays out. I mean, we know that there was the scene, I guess, lesson 3 that was cut out. I don't know how long that lesson was. It doesn't sound like it would have made Luke any more favorable than he is already, because it sounds like he was just kind of being a real big jerk in that scene. So. But, there would have been an opportunity there had they played that out for us to get some more of that relationship and that dynamic. I don't think you're off base in terms of where we were. I think you're right. Rey was us seeing Luke after, 30, 40 years, and being just as shocked. That whole scene, though, we kind of, just from the clips that we had gotten and some of the Entertainment Weekly stuff that Bresnikan had released, that some of that stuff I was really hoping they would have played up the whole, the Kung Fu master and the apprentice and waiting outside for days upon days of rain and, getting the door shut. We got a little bit of that, but I really thought we were going to see more of that throwback, or at least that kind of that thread that we used to see in those old Kung Fu movies. I think that would have been really cool to see for Luke and her, and they would allow them to kind of develop a little bit more relationship there. I don't know if we're looking at the hero's journey, that first stage, which was the road of trials. That's, to me, I was looking at that as this is those lessons, right? Lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3. Mm-hmm. Those are the trials that she was going through. And just to kind of keep going down that path, right? Since we're talking about TFA was the first act, which was the departure act. The second act would be initiation. The next stage after that is meeting the goddess. And this is the one where, in the hero's journey, the hero goes and meets this goddess and gets this revelation. And it almost felt like that was the cave, right? The goddess was herself going down into the cave, and kind of seeing herself. Interesting enough, there was another article, and I forget where this was, where Rian Johnson was kind of talking about it. And we can probably talk about the cave here. I want to get some more thoughts from you on that, but he had kind of said, up at the top was, the light, down below was a dark, just like in Dagobah, but that the idea was that if the at the top was light and the down underneath was the darkness, as she descends into the darkness, and she sees, just like Luke did in the cave, her greatest fear, and her greatest fear is that in search for her identity, she has nobody but herself to rely on. The only thing, that was my take, honestly, from the movie. But I've seen so many theories out there about who those people were, quote, people in the mirror. Everything from they were, her original parents. They were, it's Kylo and Rey. I've seen that one. That was what she was seeing. Is that
of course we got to have that on,
right,
on the internet. Of course,
why
would we can't have But anyway, go ahead.
But
continue.
I mean, you name it. There's everybody's got a theory as to who those quote two people were. But I really did walk away with this as this was just who she was looking for was right in front of her the whole time. That was my take on it. But I don't know. What did you think about that whole cave scene? I guess and where what the implication would be there.
Well, I have a theory, as most people do. But first, I'll say I agree with you I think the Force was revealing what she needed to see, and what really mattered was herself. Now, Ryan may interpret it his way, and I guess in my mind, as with Ryan, is he left a lot of things open, even though it looks like he didn't. And this is one of those things where, in his mind, it's obviously she's a no one here or whatever. Those parents don't matter. And that's pretty much, I was watching Jessica Shabbat on the nerdiest thing about Ryan's comments on the podcast that we'd mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. And basically, that wasn't his focus. Snoke, that wasn't the focus. That wasn't his focus of the movie. And that's fine. I get that. And then he kind of left it like, he kind of addressed it, but he kind of didn't address it. And I think I agree with you. All she needs is herself. And that's the same thing with Luke. Luke saw himself, and it was a warning of like, if you get hooked on something, you're going to go your own, this is where you're going to end up. And that's kind of what it was and stuff. So I think the Force was telling her, worry about yourself and not what happened in the past, so to speak, to go forward. My theory is, if you look at it, this is one way to retcon it. I don't know if they'll do it. And this is just my crazy thinking here, is that Luke is awakening at the time that she's in the hole here, in the blowhole, in the mirror and everything. And he reaches out to Leia. And then he's back in the Force and everything. And I get the feeling that he sensed her in the cave, which is why he goes looking for her after. And she was about to see who her parents were, because there was two people there. And they were walking up to the mirror. So there was two people there. Now, this is where it gets weird, is where I think Luke blocked it. And she didn't see what she was going to see, because Luke got involved and said, no, you don't need to know that I'm your father right now, because you can't handle that, because you're going to go running off to Kylo. Very similar in a lot of ways. But I don't know if they'll do that. Sounds a lot crazy, but then again, a lot of crazy things have happened. It could have been anything, at that point. But there were two people coming towards that mirror as a tease. So I don't even know what to make of it, to be honest. It's almost like the vision itself. You can interpret it a million different ways, and who knows what that could be. But what do you think of my crazy theory?
I don't think it's any crazier than saying that Kylo lied to her, or Kylo put the thoughts in her mind at some point that her parents are nobody, or it was Snoke that's been playing both of them.
Didn't we hint at that last week? Yeah, with Snoke?
I mean, those theories are out there everywhere, and there's no one knows for sure, right? So I don't think you're too far off base here. I mean, listeners might disagree, but I think you're okay, Mike.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we'll see. We'll find out in 2 years, and I'm sure we'll all have 500 podcasts about who's her parents and who's not her parents, and she's a no one, and blah, 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 blah. That whole thing. But anyway, what else we got going on here?
Well, I think we talked about whether or not Rey was the hero. Was she truly the heroine of this of the movie, or did she get upstaged? Do we have like the anti-hero in like Kylo Ren or someone else?
It seems like it's a bit of it's like a duality, which would make sense if I'm thinking in Ryan terms, because that's, as he said, and everyone said, the same side, that, they're equal in the Force, and except one's the dark side, one's the light side, and they're, to balance each other. I get that. So I could see, as, he's almost maybe trying to be the anti-hero in a sense, like kind of like his father, which would be interesting. He's still evil, and he killed all, he's bad, but he took out the head guy, and he took out basically the bad parts of the First Order and everything and stuff. And he offers, Rey this, and she says no. And I think she's still a hero, obviously, and she's, the hero's journey is going on there. I just think it was kind of a duality thing. Did she take a step back the third act? Yeah, but that was more of a Luke and Kylo moment, and I understand that. So I mean, I don't have a big problem with her. I don't even want to say the word stepping back, but like, because it was obviously Luke and Kylo's moment and Luke and Leia's moment there at the end there. And, I see, again, it goes back to Rian trying to do a lot there. So I give him credit. I mean, I don't even know if I could come up with half the stuff he did. So, I mean, I give him some credit. But what else we got here?
Well, I got a question for you. Is she a Skywalker? Is that been put to rest?
I don't think so. Rian even said himself that it's still open and JJ can do whatever he wants to do. And JJ says he's going to tie it all together. Now, this is the thing I have. And I can't even blame Rian on this because, I wanted her to be a Skywalker, but I can live with her not being a Skywalker. And Joa could as well. We did 2 shows on it. She's not a Skywalker. And we went from convinced she's a Skywalker to not being convinced she's a Skywalker. Me, I still think she is. And they'll probably retcon it in a way. So I don't know. They left it open-ended in my mind. But then again, as I told even Katie when we were arguing about this, and I said, well, do I even want Force Ghost Dad coming and say, oh, by the way, I'm your dad? That kind of cheapens things. I'd rather have the father-daughter moment while training. I mean, we had that to a degree when they were fighting, because I see that me and my daughter fighting with lightsabers someday, because I won't let her go out on a date or something. So I could see that happening, with them going forward. That's why I kind of wanted Luke to be in 9 and then maybe pass on in 9 or something like that. But, I mean, we'll see. We'll find out. I think it's still open-ended. Yeah. I'm fine with it either way at this point. But my problem is for Rian, he's getting a lot of flack for it. And I understand that.
Yeah.
But I don't think he deserves the heat as much because it comes from the, I guess the story group to a degree, but it comes from Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm saying it's the Skywalker saga. Okay. Well, we got Ben Solo. I get that. We got Leia and we got Luke and stuff. But Luke's dead. The Skywalker name is actually out of play now when you think about it. So.
Right. No, and I'm with you. I was exactly about to say I'm going to have to keep going back to this because we got sold on this. I mean, there's you can go out online and look how many times we were told this was the next chapter in the Skywalker saga. And given what's happened or transpired in The Last Jedi, the only Skywalker that's left at this point, really, physically, is, Kylo. So is this his story or is it Rey's story? Because if it's
Correct.
not, right, if it's Kylo's story, or if it just doesn't, I don't know. There's something that's just kind of disjointed there that doesn't add up. I guess to go back to my own question about whether or not she's a Skywalker, as much as I don't want to say this, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that she is or she isn't. And I'm only saying that because if we learn in nothing from The Last Jedi, it's that no matter what's happened in the past, can always be changed. We don't have. It doesn't feel like, at least in this series, we had to. This has set a precedence now that we don't have to build upon those threads that were laid down or those beats that were laid down in the movie prior to. So, if this is if you've got, JJ coming in now, he can go back and say, you know what, I'm going to change all of that. Even though Rian did said all these things, to your point, I'm going to go retcon all this stuff and. Who's to stop him? So I don't think it's buried. I think it's still open, and that's not me holding on to a thread. I don't think I had a theory one way or a preference one way or the other, a strong preference anyway. That's just to say that's just kind of where we are. That's the state of things right now in the Star Wars saga. Whatever you see doesn't have to be, what we see later in the future doesn't have to be that way anymore.
Exactly. I mean, I'm fine with it either way. I mean, I just hopefully 9's epic and. Rey has a great arc, like a finishing arc to everything. And I think it'll be good. I'm waiting for it. I can't wait for it. And we'll see what goes on. But again, it goes back to, if you're selling me on the Skywalker saga, I got to have a Skywalker, and you just killed off Luke, the one who's got the name. Now, I know I'm going to get flack for concentrating on a name, but it goes back to them saying, it's the Skywalker saga. It's the Skywalker saga. All right. That's cool. Give me a Skywalker in name. I mean, I know Leia is by blood, and so is Solo by blood, and all that, Ben and stuff like that. But Luke was the Skywalker, so to speak, with the name. All right, so what's Rey? Rey's nobody at this point. Okay, that's fine. But I don't have a problem in one way, because if I said like over a year ago that Rey's here to destroy all the Skywalkers, or as I've even speculated the last couple of weeks, is that. With George's idea, a lot of people point out in the art book, as you and I have talked about it, I'm not sure on air or anything, but we've talked privately about it. It was, George's ideas initially with what's going on in the temple and with Luke being haunted by the Sith ghost and all these things that are going on there. And he was going to train Kara at the time, which I think we mentioned last episode or so, and stuff like that. So in my mind, I even said to myself, I mentioned to Becca, I said, well, I'm fine with it because I think George was going to put it to end at 9. Like everything was going to be done at 9, and maybe they're kind of doing that. Like that's just the way they're doing it. They're just ending the Skywalker saga and they're just moving on with all these spinoffs and everything else and stuff like that. I don't know. I could be wrong, but we'll find out soon enough, right? So what else we got here?
Well, I guess the question about whether or not Rey is a nobody, and I've seen this come up. This has been debated a number of times since the movie came out. Now that we know what we know, but there's one piece of it, whether you feel like she is or she isn't. The notion that there's something special about this in Star Wars, that somebody that is a nobody can be a Jedi, and maybe I'm too into the weeds, or I'm too into the fandom and the books and the comics and the TV series and all this stuff. But this isn't anything new, right? We've had plenty of people in the Star Wars universe that have come from nothing that became Jedis. Now, maybe not to this magnitude of power. We know that. I mean, they've kind of set these guys apart, both Kylo and Rey, to say that they're equal and that they're supposed to offset each other, or offset one another. But the idea that somebody comes from nothing that can become a Jedi isn't anything new. That precedent was set a long time ago, and you can go back and look at any one of a number of Jedis that even like somebody like Ben Kenobi, right?
Even Yoda. I mean, he was a nobody, and here he is. He's one of the most powerful of all time until Anakin came along, midi-chlorian wise, that is. And stuff like that. Yeah, but I agree with you. It goes back for a while that, they just, they used to kidnap the kids there, the Jedi, and make them, and put them through the paces. And, there was some pretty powerful Jedis. I mean, Mace as well. We don't know his background, Kudamunde, and if that's how I said his name right. I don't even know if I said that. Yeah, it's a weird name, but you know what I mean. And stuff like that. Well, hey, it's not the first and last name I'm going to butcher.
Well, if I could just real quick, as a fan of the show, every time you said his name, I'd always go, "No, it's Ki." I would be yelling at my phone. It's Ki-Adi-Mundi, not what you said. So I finally got to correct you there.
I like my version better.
Of course you do.
So I'm just going to go with that, and we'll leave it at that. But yes, definitely that whole thing. Now the problem I have with the nobody thing. I mean, I don't even have a problem with it. It's fine. Is we're sold that Anakin is this special. He's got this high midi-chlorian count. He is special. He is the chosen one, right? Okay, so we get that. The Skywalker bloodline is pretty potent. I'm not to say there's not another equal, in blood or in the Force that could happen. I'm just saying when Kylo is as powerful as he is, because he's a Skywalker and, all these other things, he's got a bit of his father who's got some special skills himself and I'm sure he learned quite a few things from Chewbacca and Han, and added on top of that. So, and you add Leia in there and everything else, I would imagine that Rey would be the same. Like if they're equal, well, what would make them equal? Well, they're both Skywalkers in my mind. Now, I'm not saying I'm right. I could be wrong and, all that stuff. So yeah, it is what it is. I don't know. It's just, it's very...
There's compelling evidence on both sides, right? And anyone that goes and falls on that chooses to die on the hill, that she's not one or the other, is just kind of foolish. There's evidence galore in just both what was said in the movies, off script, interviews, that kind of thing. You can pick and choose a number of different quotes and citations to kind of back up your theory. So I just don't get why people are falling one side or the other, falling on the sword one way or the other for this stuff.
Well, it's funny because it's like now we're going to have a total of 4 years of debate over is she or isn't she? And I think this is where I get really aggravated at the end of the day. And it's not so much Ryan's fault because that's not what he was concentrating on. It's what we were as fans. It's not so much Ryan. He wanted to tell his story, and he did, and that's fine. I mean, I don't have a problem with it. It's just fans who lose our minds over everything and stuff like that. So I agree with you. If you can, then like I said, with us, we debated for 2 years. For like a year and a half, we were convinced she's a Skywalker, and it seemed that way at the end of the movie. It sets up pretty nicely for that. And we went back and forth, Joe and I, we laid out all our evidence, and we said, well, no, we can't find an argument that she's not. Then we got an email and we looked at things differently. And then we did the Rey is not a Skywalker episodes. We did 2 of them. And we're like, all right, now we're seeing things a little differently. And, we come, at things that were said and what we were seeing. It's like, all right, she's not a Skywalker. And we were fine with it. We came to grips with it. It was fine. It's like when we first learned that Luke wasn't even going to say anything in the Force Awakens. We didn't like it at first, but we came around to it and stuff like that. And maybe that's what the fans will do here as well. I don't know. I mean, I just don't see it could go either way again, which is, I think, the more aggravating part is we're going to debate another 2 years. It's, I'm exhausted having this debate. Is she or isn't she? It's like, oh my God, really? I have no energy for this. Yeah. I got other things to talk about. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
I'll leave it at that, I guess, unless you got anything else to say, sir.
No, not on that. I guess just kind of, we'll wrap up a couple things here and then maybe just kind of talk about what's next, what we expect in episode 9. But okay. There were a couple things here that with Rey's character, and this is, I know I'm starting to sound like I'm just kind of harping on her character. I promise you, I do really love her. And like you said earlier, my daughter, the minute we say Rey in the household, I mean, her ears perk up and she runs over and she's got every single one of the dolls and the bed sheets. And so, I mean, I get to see and love Rey, not only in my own personal way, but I get to see it through her eyes and love, Rey in a totally different way there. But all that said, so there's my case for why I love her. But, we didn't get to see, the Force visions. That was kind of just dropped, and maybe that was just a JJ thing, or maybe that was just one element that JJ wanted to use to kind of drive his. Well,
this is where it gets a little disjointed as well. Like JJ used the Force visions, which I liked artistically, and it gets into that whole Force lore, which I liked. Then we get into the perspective of a flashback with Kylo and Luke. The whole thing that happens there, we get that 3 thing. I don't know.
Yeah, the Rashomon effect.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mind it because it kind of fits what Ryan was trying to do. But me personally, I would have rather have had, and maybe the visual, not the visual dictionary, but the art book ruined it for me. When, you get the picture of the Sith ghost behind Luke and, you get visions of him being haunted, and then you got Rey being like tormented by things and all on this island, and crazy things are going to happen. Yoda showing up, Anakin showing up, Qui-Gon, everybody's out of the father even coming out of retirement and everything. Like, I had crazy things going on in my head when I'm looking at that book, the art book there, because you see things, you're like, wow, that would have been awesome if this island was just so mysterious and had all this Force stuff going on and stuff like that. I would have liked like visions, like they were all having visions, like Luke was having visions of things, and then Rey. And even Kylo was getting visions, and maybe even Snoke, like getting all 4 of them, all just like having this big mind trip. Of course, people would have said people were dropping acid or something, I don't know, but it would have gotten really crazy and stuff like that. I personally like the flashback, not the flashbacks, but the vision.
Force
it was
backs.
interesting. Yeah, exactly. But for what Ryan was doing, I didn't mind it at all. But I don't know, where were you going, sir? I didn't mean to cut you off. It was just
kind of. I think you said it's another one of those elements that just felt disjointed. It didn't feel like it was a continuation of that. I was honestly, when Force Awakens came out and I saw that scene, I really didn't know what the hell I'd just seen, because we had never seen it like that. We'd never seen something like that, at least in a Star Wars movie.
I think it's been 3 years and he still doesn't know what he saw.
Well, yeah, we all don't. And here we are again. This is another one of those mystery box things from JJ, and I'm a huge Lost fan. I mean, I can quote lines and titles of episodes all day long, but that wasn't anything that wasn't new to me, right? It was new to me in Star Wars, but I mean, you set that up, and we've got these Force visions, and then we come into The Last Jedi, and it never really kind of pans out. Like, we never really get anything from it now. There was a lot of debate about whether or not she was seeing the future, seeing the past, and I get we didn't have a big time frame in The Last Jedi. There really wasn't that much time that transpired. So maybe, as soon as that night when she's on the Falcon at the very last scene, maybe she has another Force vision. We don't know. But it just seems like that was another plot.
We'll find out. Yeah. I guess maybe.
So that was one that kind of, we didn't get a lot of payout for. And then the other one was just the lightsaber calling to her. I mean, we had this whole King Arthurian legend of the saber calling to her. And I guess you could make the argument that it was really just to get her on the path. But I don't know. I don't know how you felt about it, but when I walked away, at least, from The Force Awakens in that particular scene, that seemed like another story element that was super important. Why would this lightsaber call to her? How did it get into Maz's castle? Just, all these things had to line up for her to get it. And maybe that is the Force working in mysterious ways. But it seemed like that was relevant. Like that was an important piece. And in The Last Jedi, I don't know that really we didn't get that continuation. At least we didn't get that thread completed.
Well, when you look at it, I mean, at first it calls to her, and it's almost like saying she's more powerful than him. Okay, I get that. And now it looks like, all right, so in one way, you could say The Force Awakens was Rey coming to being, obviously, and she's risen in the Force, and she's maybe even more aware and more powerful than Kylo is in The Force Awakens. Then we flip-flop. Now we see Kylo's rise in power here, obviously, right? We see that. And now it's almost like they're equal, and that's why the saber, it's in the middle of them, it heats up, and it breaks and whatnot. And that's to show that they actually are equally powerful now. They're not offset. So I can see it looking at it that way. However, it still seems wonky. It's almost, to me, it's like, all right, the lightsaber chose the good Skywalker over the bad Skywalker because, that lightsaber's done enough bad things, so it's going to go to the good one. It knows where the evil one goes. It knows what happens when that happens. And in this case, Kylo is they're just too powerful. So I don't know. I don't know. Now it kind of, them being equal and pulling on that saber now kind of seems like it kind of shatters that, which it really did actually in a way there. So I don't know. I mean, I don't have a big issue with it. I like that it should, they needed something to show that they're equally powerful visually. And I guess that was a good way to do it. I didn't like the lightsaber breaking. I'll say that, but that's just my preference. And of course I didn't like the lightsaber being thrown over the shoulder, but I mean, and that's the interest. Although I do like the fact that Luke is so disinterested in it and doesn't matter to him because that's where he is at that point in his life. I thought that was interesting where Rey she's still holding on to that. I don't know. It's just him. But anything else you got? Yeah.
I mean, so the reason I even brought this up, really, this whole lightsaber calling, it was, I don't know, the other night I was up late watching junk and I started watching the Force Awakens trailers and I went back to that second teaser trailer. And it starts with the voiceover from Luke saying, "Oh yeah, the Force is powerful. My family, yep. My dad has it, my sister has it, and now you have it too."
Yep.
Right. And you take that trailer, which we as Star Wars fans probably saw 1 million times, just watched it over and over again.
Yep.
But you take that and you couple that with the lightsabers calling to you. This is why we got the headcanon that we did. This is why people were fixated on, okay, she's got to be a Skywalker, or at least there's potential to be there. And today, if you were, I just kind of followed that through. I went and looked on just say, okay, what are people talking about with that? Does it really mean anything? Is it relevant? Are people still hung up on it? And the reality is they are. And the counter argument is to, well, that was really just Luke talking to Kylo, which I think is BS because I don't know that anybody had it in their mind that he was talking to Kylo Ren at that point in the trailer. So either way, I think that
wouldn't make sense.
What's that?
That wouldn't make sense at all because Kylo would be aware that he was in the Force at an early age and especially around mom and all that stuff. And why would Luke say blah, 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 blah? Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe looking
it's
at
a
it
pep
wrong.
talk. I don't know. I mean, I guess you could make the argument either way, but I just cannot buy that they were thinking that forward ahead back then, when they did all that. So I don't know. I guess I'm just kind of disappointed that we at least didn't get some kind of closure as to why that saber called, because I thought it was really, again, I'm going to say the Arthurian legend and the sword calling to King Arthur and all of that. But so I guess we'll bury that one and move on.
Well, let me ask you this. I'll throw in because we didn't really get into the whole dynamic with Rey and Kylo. I guess we should talk about it a little bit here. And I'm not talking Reylo here. I'm talking, I guess we kind of did because they're equal in the Force. Obviously, we get that. But, they have a connection, obviously, whether you believe. I mean, I think there was a connection prior to Snoke doing what Snoke was doing. But this is the mystery with Snoke. Was he even in her head earlier on when Kylo's torturing her and in that scene there and things are going back? Is that him even getting involved there at that point? We don't know because we don't know what he sees. Although he sees everything, right? In that Oculus thing. So who knows? But anyway, well, what do you think of that? Obviously, and obviously the Force bond continued after Snoke was dead because we get that in and then she finally cuts it off there. So unless there's like an residual effect of like what Snoke was doing. Like there's like an hour after he dies, it wears off or something. I don't know. But what do you think of their dynamic anyway? I mean, we don't have to get into Reylo or anything like that. I mean, I know that's a poo-poo subject with Joa and everything like that. Me, I don't really care. But what do you think?
Yeah, so I think for Rey, maybe the Force awakening her was an immediate response to Kylo coming to power. I mean, that's certainly one theory. When as his darkness rose, the Force countered it with awakening the Force and Rey and setting her on that path and allowing things to line up the way they did with Finn and Poe crashing on Jakku and BB-8 and all that. Maybe that was that. I think there definitely is a connection there, and maybe that was a seed of it. It's because we don't really have a whole lot on Snoke outside of we know that he's manipulative and we know now that he has some kind of Force power that allows him to link people together. Why I don't think it's a far stretch to say that he isn't able to project images or suppress memories or plant false memories in anyone really. I don't think that's out of the question. So you could make an argument that maybe some of what we heard and saw in The Last Jedi really was just more of Snoke's, grand scheme and manipulation. So as far as the Reylo thing goes, I think we covered this already, but I don't really have a problem with them being, having that relationship. I think it's over. I think at the end of the end of The Last Jedi, I think that's kind of done. Are they still going to be connected? Yeah, probably. They're probably always going to have that tethering, but I think we saw Rey is incorruptible. I don't think anything can break her, right? She made that declaration to Luke and said, "I won't fail you." She stood by that. She didn't fail him. And I can't see, and I really just don't see her character, at least the way she's going down here, both on her hero's journey and what she's been established in terms of her character. I cannot see her coming back to Kylo in any way. Now, she may still help, the good in her may still help him become redeemed and maybe help him get to that point. But I don't see them having this kind of, a Reylo relationship. I just, not that I'm against it. I just don't see how that's going to pan out at this point.
Yeah, I don't see it happening that way. I mean, I think she closed the door on it. It was literally closed the door, and I don't think they're going to have a connection for a while. But we'll see. Maybe in 30 years from now, maybe she'll be like Luke and doesn't care anymore. Similar to her dad, I guess you could say. I don't know. No, I'm only kidding. We don't really know for sure. But, I agree with you. She's very uncorruptible in that sense. And she's like Luke. She kind of does her own thing. See, then again, there's all the signs that she could be Luke's because she does a lot of things just like Luke. And of course, she does things other ways, too. So it's hard to say. But in any case, we'll move on to, I guess we should just about wrap this up here. What else you got going on here? What do we want to?
Well, I thought we just kind of talk about what we expect to see maybe in 9. If we follow down the hero's journey into the third act, which is the return, there's a couple things that we probably can expect to happen to her, where she's, she's going to have a difficult journey still ahead of her. We know that she's going to be, there's the master of two worlds where she's able to live in kind of both the spiritual material world, the conscious, all that stuff. Some of the same parallels that we saw, Luke go through. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on going into 9? Do we see her, assuming that there's a time jump, do we jump into her, leading some kind of new Jedi Academy? Is she now the new hope? Is she now the next Jedi, leader, trainer?
I want to say, see, this is the other problem I have is, all right, if she's the new Jedi, now, Luke didn't get to fulfill that whole pass on what you've learned, in a sense, with his academy. Obviously, they got slaughtered, so that's interesting that happened. And now Rey is the one to do that, so what was the point of Luke doing his thing? I guess I'm working that out in my head where it'll be fine. I really don't have a problem with it. I'm just kind of going through the motions and trying to work all that out. But if Rey is going to be leading the way, I like the idea that, well, it depends. If 9 is the end-all, be-all, which John Boyega seems to say, he says it's going to be the war to end all wars, which might happen. But if it's not, I like the idea of her having a apprentice, not more than one, not a whole class or anything. But I also like Kylo having an apprentice. So there's that mirror again. They're mirroring each other and that whole thing. And she's being a student. This is why I almost want to say you need almost 10 years to go by where she's matured and he's matured, where she can pass on some knowledge and stuff, and where she'd be talking to Luke and they'd be having conversations, and Kylo, who knows what he's doing, where he's figuring things out on his own. He's always probably trying to, pick up the phone and call Rey, and Rey's not answering or whatever, something like that. So I imagine they're going to confront each other again. I mean, you almost have to do that again. So, I mean, I don't know how that's going to go. How would that come to be? I don't know. That's the interesting thing. Like, what would be the dynamic to get those two to face off again? There's not much left in the Resistance, although we know they're out there. The fighter pilots and stuff, they're still out there, but they didn't answer the call, which is interesting. So we'll find out. Hopefully we'll find out in Battlefront 2 what was going on at that point. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really don't know what to expect in 9 now.
Yeah, no. So yeah, I don't want to cut you off, but that's exactly why I threw this question on here too, because like, if you think about, Empire and the way that ended, and even the Clone Wars, the way it ended, we had hooks. We had things that said, okay, here's something to look forward to, and all we got really, and we'll probably get feedback for this, but all we really got was Broom Boy. We got now that there's a new hope. Okay, so, yeah, great. So what? There really wasn't a whole lot that was planted. I mean, we know she's going to have to build a new lightsaber, and I know we had and maybe that's as exciting as it gets, but we had that kind of conversation in Discord the other day about what would it look like. Is she going to do a double lightsaber? Is she going to have a staff?
No,
right?
She's going to piece that. R2 is going to weld that thing back together because the crystal's fine. It's just that top piece that needs to be welded back. And R2, he's got the spare parts in there somewhere. He'll fix that thing. I mean, that's his master's old lightsaber. You think he's going to let that thing go to waste? Come on now, guys. So it's going to be the same. Yes. Yeah.
I'd like to see her pull the crystal out. Personally, I'd like to see her pull the crystal out, fixate it, one end, do a double lightsaber with some kind of staff in the middle, put the blue on the top, put the green on the back.
Is she got Luke's green one in R2? Yeah, green,
and then, maybe.
That's interesting.
But I mean, so these are the things, like, what do we have really to kind of look forward to? We know that there's 20 people that survived at the end of The Last Jedi. So that's the Rebel Alliance now. So they're going to rebuild. Rey may not be, she's going to, I don't know what her role is in all of this. Is she going to be at the forefront of the fight with Poe Dameron and the rest of the crew? Or is she doing her own thing and saying, you know what, we need to rebuild the Jedi Order? Because that to me seems like it's going to consume a lot of her time.
Well, so see, it's almost like Luke, like what we know of Luke. All right, he won the day in Return of the Jedi and everything. And he's like, all right, well, I'm just going to go start collecting these trees and do these other things. He wasn't, as far as we know, he wasn't in the fight too much after the destruction of the Death Star #2. Is this the same thing here? I mean, I know she'll help because they need to build up on the Resistance here, right? And she seems willing to do that. At the end, she's like, well, where do we go from here or whatever? And they say we got everything that we need here. Okay, I get that. But, I mean, you got to build the Jedi. She obviously took the books, right? So that's a priority to her. And I imagine Luke and maybe even Yoda are saying, hey, this is kind of where you got to go if this is what you want to be, and all this other stuff. I can show you the way. As far as the Resistance goes, that's the big mystery. I mean, what is she going to do? Dual roles? I don't know. This is why it's almost like I could see her spending 5 years of her life helping the Resistance and getting it back up, but then kind of just being, a Jedi and going her own way and maybe helping every now and then. You know what I mean? So I don't know. That's an interesting question. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how I can answer that right now.
Yeah, we just don't have a lot to really to go off. I guess is the whole point of this, is that because of the way that the story ended and the way that she kind of really did disappear, really didn't give us too many hooks going into episode 9. We don't have a lot to really speculate upon, and maybe we'll get something between now and the movies around, in books or comics or who knows what, some teasers and stuff like that we can start to build upon, or maybe who knows where we get it from. But as of right now, I don't know that we have a whole lot to kind of say one way or the other. I think it's kind of open it's really up to JJ. And again, we've talked about it before. He's got the insurmountable task now of trying to tie all these together in some way to kind of put a nice bow on it. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. And
he did say that he's going to tie all of them together,
right?
Which I have no idea. I mean, one would be bringing Plagueis involved as Snoke, and all that stuff. But, no, that's not going to happen. Well, you never know. I mean, wacky things have happened. But, yeah, well, I don't know what is going to go on with her in 9 really per se, because it ended so... I mean, it kind of ended positive. All right. As Leia says, we got everything we need. And Rey is kind of a little more hopeful. She's got that guidance from Leia. And she may have the lightsaber in pieces, but she can put it back together. Maybe that's the whole point of R2 putting it back together, is because she can put it back. I don't know. But anyway, I'm going somewhere I shouldn't with that. But, I don't know. What else do you think? Well, what did you really, I guess we should end on a good note. What did you really love about Rey's character at this point? From The Last Jedi.
So what I really liked was the fact that she continued on, maybe kind of what I started off with by saying is that, she's a self-learner. She's strong-willed and headstrong about everything. She took those texts and, she went in to Luke as the last hope. And when he didn't, help her, she said, well, screw you, buddy. I'm going to go find somebody else to help me. And that didn't turn out. And she said, well, screw that guy. I'm going to go do this on my own. I think it's cool that she's got, Leia now, at least to some extent before, depending on how they kind of end her character storyline. She's got, Leia as a mentor. Maybe we get to see some of that. I can see her looking to Leia now really as really the last person that can help her. I think that fits her character pretty well. And I think just the spirit. I mean, and I don't really want to get into the fact that I think it's okay to say that it's having a dominant, prominent female in Star Wars has been long overdue. So credit to Daisy and credit to both of the writers really for what they did, because I think they did a really good job with her. And it's something that, for me, it's one of my favorite characters, which I don't think I would have ever honestly said that, having been a fan of the original trilogy. And again, I don't want to get all personal here, but just being able to have someone that my daughter can really look up to and really confide in, in terms of like a character and that kind of thing, even at her young age, is just absolutely amazing. And it really kind of brought new life for me, and brought new life to Star Wars for me. So, yeah.
All the same things there with me, my daughter and stuff like that. I still just wanted to be a Skywalker. I don't know. That's just my thing. But you know what? I'm not going to harp on it. It's not a big deal.
We'll do it another show.
Yeah. No, not even that. We've done 2 years of it. It's not
Sure.
really, not even worth it. But, I'm actually, I guess that the thing that I like the most is actually the end and where she's going to go. Because I don't even know. Obviously, as we just went through 2 seconds ago, I don't know, but I'm very, I got the sense of hope with her, and even with Luke. I mean, the only thing I'll say this closing up, is, and I don't mean to end on a downer, is with Luke passing, if he's really dead or who knows what's what, but I believe he is dead, but at least that's what we're led to believe, is, and I got to watch it again. I could be wrong. And I think you even pointed it out to me, is that they feel it at the same time, but she's the first person to say, he passed in peace and stuff like that, which I think Leia would know anyway, but, that whole thing. So I guess I'm hopeful when things happen. I mean, my gripe is that, her and Luke left at not on the best of terms. And then, she feels him dying in the Force and she's like, oh yeah, he died in peace. It's cool. And it's like, what? Huh? What? But then in any case, I think the cool thing with her is that she took the books and Luke didn't think she took the books or didn't even think about it. And he's ready to destroy everything. And Yoda knew about that. And it shows a lot like Luke in the sense that she went off and did her thing, which is, what he used to do. He used to listen to the masters, then kind of counter their argument of what their reasoning, and then kind of just go and do his thing and what he felt is right, because he was going by the heart. And that's the same thing. She was doing the same thing. So that gives me a lot of hope that, things are going to be good in 9, and, it'll be a fun time, I guess you could say. But that's all I really have. I mean, other than it didn't go the way I thought, but that's fine. I'm good with that. And I'm curious where they're going to go forward. It's almost like Kylo, the same thing, the flip side of that with Kylo and all that, and what he's going to do now. So the dynamics there, it'll be interesting going forward. But do we have anything else to close out the show with, sir?
I don't think so. I think that's it.
All right. Well, excellent. Well, you guys, if you want to know where to like us, find us, and all that stuff, check out the show description. I'm not going to read them, and neither is Albert. So that's all you have to do. All the important links are there. Check them out, and we will see you guys next week. Thanks for joining us. You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property, and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.